Hello. Yeah. Hey guys, my name is Ram from Great Learning. Sorry, I am Ram from Great Learning, and this is our session on C++ tutorial. All right, so this is how we're gonna go ahead with it, guys. I'm going to do theory as well as practical all together, so you guys will get a better understanding. Okay, but I before I do before I begin, I do wish that you guys would give me a confirmation on whether you guys can hear me or not. So that I don't go on ranting for 15, 20 minutes and then realize that no one can hear me. Yeah, that's happened before. Okay, so I'll just wait for a yes or no from you guys. And once I get that, I'll start the session properly. So till that happens, I want to show you guys something. Something called Great Learning Academy. So some of you may already know about this, and some of you don't know about this. Now, those who've already been watching my sessions and all of our sessions, you know about Great Learning Academy. It's basically a place for you to get free certificates. We have more than 80 plus free courses. If you guys just scroll down or just type in whatever domain you want to search by. Let's say you want to search by, digital marketing, then you get digital marketing courses and all those kind of things. All right. So we have a lot of different courses that might interest you: IT and software, data science, digital marketing, big data, and we have even design and video editing if you're into that kind of thing. And also we do provide it in Hindi. So if you're a person who's more, हिंदी में अच्छे से सीख सकते हो, better सीख सकते हो, तो go for that. Yeah, so courses in Hindi. All right, so this is Great Learning. You can, download our app and enroll for these courses, or, go to Great Learning Academy. Just type Great Learning Academy on Google, and the first link you get is the one that it is. And again, it's completely free, so you guys don't have to, worry about paying for anything. Like we have good amount of hours put in for you guys, especially for those who don't have a job right now, or are looking to change their careers, or are a fresher and finding it difficult to find a job. This is especially for you guys because it helps you build a fundamental and define a career path for yourself. Okay. All right, now let me check if you guys can hear me and see me properly. All right, so I see that I am very audible. There is a lot of yes, 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 guys. So keep the chat as interactive as it is right now. Now, let me see if I remember any names. Let me see if any one of you, Hey, yeah, I see Kashyap is here. Welcome back, Kashyap. I think you've been enjoying my sessions a lot. You've been here for a lot of sessions. So, yeah, so I know Kashyap. Let's see if I remember any other names. Mm, All right, so far that's the only name I remember. So sorry guys if I if I forgot your name. I'll try to remember everyone's name, whoever attends my classes. All right, so guys, today we'll be learning about C++. Now, I want to know how many of you know C++. So let me know in the chat. Do you know C++, or do you know programming? If so, what language do you know, and how comfortable you are with it? Or if you are a complete beginner, let me know. It's fine, because this session is basically going to be for beginners. I will teach it in a way so that it's easy for you guys to understand, especially if you're a beginner. Okay, but do let me know in the chat. So we have Anirudh saying that I already learned C++. That's really awesome, Anirudh. So you know C++. This might be a good revision for you. Then we have 19CS106. I think his name is Vignesh. He knows the basics. And I see a lot of people saying, they do know it. Some are saying they don't know. Some people are saying they know Python. We have Naman, who does not know C++ at all. Somebody knows C, so we have Amarjeet knowing C. We have PK knowing beginning of it, and Anirudh's like C++ is very easy. Yes, it is. If you have the right teacher. Joking. If you have the right beginning, then it will help you out. All right, so we see a lot of beginners over here. So guys, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in a little slow pace. All right, so that it helps you guys understand what we're going to be dealing with. So a quick intro about C++. It's a programming language, right? So this is what we're going to be covering today: introduction, C++ syntax, commenting, variables, user input / output, data types, operator strings, math, Boolean, conditional statements, switch case, loops. Now, if it feels like it's a lot, do not worry. I will try to, give a little 10 minutes extra to this session so that you guys can watch all of it. And also this video will be there as as an uploaded video. So this session, so you guys can always refer back to this. Okay, so first let's understand what C++ is. So C++ is a mid-level language as it is associated with a low program as it is associated with low programming as well as creation of high-level applications. So don't take anything out of that. Just understand it's a programming language that we use for a lot of different purposes. We can use it for driver kernel creations, that is creating the kernel of a particular operating system. If you want to, you can use C++ for that. Or if you want to create GUI, a graphic user interface applications or desktop applications, you can even do that for C++. Now the amazing thing about C++ is that it has a lot of flexibility. You can use it in a lot of different domains. You have libraries for that purpose. So some of you don't know this, but you can even use C++ in some data oriented way. It has the libraries for that purpose, but it's not specifically used for that, right? And the main thing about C++ is that you guys might have heard, if you already know about C++, is that it's an object-oriented language. Now, what is an object-oriented language is something I will cover later. So for now, just understand that C++ is an object-oriented language. Now, C++ is an evolution of the language C. So C was one of the earliest languages that was used in the industry or, in the computer developing scene, software developing scene. And then, suddenly someone came up with a better version of it where they were able to incorporate object-oriented, concepts into the language. And hence it became C++ from C. So you guys can see it's a gradual evolution of the language. And now we have C sharp, which is more of an evolution over C++, where it, fills in the gaps that C++ was not able to. Okay, so the amazing thing about C++ is that it's machine independent, but it's platform centric and it has speedy executions. So that is one of the most interesting parts of C++, that it's very fast. So sometimes when you want to write software that is very fast, you would actually prefer to use C++ instead of other languages. Now, Python is another amazing language that I would recommend to any beginner. Is also pretty good, but C++ is faster than Python. So in a lot of cases, you will not use Python, you would use C++, right? Okay. So thing about C++, it's a case insensitive language. It is used in many gaming applications. So if you know C++, you can always divulge into becoming a software developer in the gaming industry, where you become a game developer, right? Yeah, so that's a good career dive for you. And the first choice in programming competition because of its speed and easier, less complex syntax. Now you may be wondering, okay, C++ and complex syntax and less complex syntax, what are you joking with me? No, obviously not. C++ has a little bit of a complicated syntax, but you have languages with worse syntax, right? So you should be happy you have only C++ to deal with. The thing is, you might be comparing it to Python. Python is just so simple. It's like writing English, right? But in C++, you have to think of writing a semicolon if you're writing the greater than equal to, or if you're missing a parenthesis here and there. That's all important. So the thing is, you actually get used to it. Once you get used to it, right, it becomes very easy for you to understand anything. Now, here's the thing. Now this is not something I've made a study on, but generally what I've seen is that beginners who start with C++, right, they find it much more easier transitioning into other languages because they've already, gone through the tougher parts of programming. So they do not have to worry about doing that in other languages. Like if you transition from C++ to Python, it's way easier than transitioning from Python to C++. So it's not at all a bad language for beginners to start with. Even I started with C++ back in school, right? Okay, and it has rich library support for rapid development. You have a lot of different libraries that allow you to develop a lot of different types of things. Like I had given you guys an earlier example, right? So you can even go into game development with C++. All right, so that's about C++. Again, these are the different types of applications you can, develop using C++, like operating system development with like Ubuntu or Windows, web browser development like Chrome or Firefox, graphic engines like Adobe, Ubisoft, Unreal, Zynga. These are all for the game lovers. And the database development like MongoDB, MySQL, and then cloud and distributed system development also with your AWS and Azure. All right, so you can see that C++ has a lot of unique things. It is very flexible, and it is not at all, an aggressive language, is what I would say. It's not way too aggressive. I think it's like in the middle of being way too aggressive and not at all aggressive, maybe way too submissive. All right, so let's start off with C++ syntax. So now I'm going to show you guys a basic C++ syntax over here, and I'm going to explain to you what is happening over here. Okay, so here we'll start off by reading using namespace std. Now, what is this? So here's what I'm actually going to avoid using namespace std, and I'll tell you guys what rest of the things are. Then I'll come back to using namespace std. So the first thing we see is hash include IO stream, and corresponding to that, it's written library slash header inclusion. So what is being said over here is that IO stream is a library. Now I've told you guys that we use different libraries for different purposes. So IOStream is a library that allows us to use functions such as cin and cout. You cannot use them without IOStream, right? So cin and cout can only be used when you include this library. So this library basically allows you to use this function, right? Okay, so this is not a user-defined function. This is a already present function over here. Now we come down to int main. So you guys might be wondering, what is int main? So whenever you write code in C++, you do so in blocks. So one of the most important blocks, block is basically a block of code. Like you see the curly brace starting over here and ending over here. So this is basically a block of code, right? So you have a lot of blocks of code in which you have different types of codes. So one of the most important blocks of code is your int main. So this is basically where you will write your main code. Like whatever you want to execute, you will execute it using main. So execution begins here and must have int as the return type. Now you don't need to know why it must have int as return type. Just know that main is where the code gets executed. Like cout, hello world. So we're basically trying to do, what we're trying to do over here is we're going to print the statement hello world. So cout is a function that allows us to print statements. When I say print statements, you will have a console. It will be a screen where you will have your outputs, right? So cout is a function that allows us to print statements to the console. So when you want to say, hi guys, my name is Ram and I love ice cream, and I thought Avengers was a very mediocre movie. If I want to print out that statement, right, I would do so by typing in cout, whatever statement, and semicolon. So you guys can see over here, one sec, where's my mouse? Yeah, I lost my mouse there. Yeah, so cout lesser than quotations hello world. So this is looks a little difficult, but don't worry. The quotations is where you will write the string, whatever value you want to print. So hello world is something you want to print, you will write it in the double quotes. And this lesser than basically tells cout that this is the statement you want to print out. Okay. And then we have the semicolon. Now the semicolon is basically used to tell the C++ compiler that a statement has been written and it is completed. Now whenever you write code, you will be using semicolons. Now if you wanted to take in some value, then you will write cn greater than, and then whatever variable, and you will end it with a semicolon. Over here also you guys can see using namespace std semicolon. Now, in some cases, we're not using it, like while we're including the library, we don't need to mention the semicolon. When we are creating int main, the block over here with the curly braces, we are not including a semicolon. Okay, so those are the exceptions. There are more exceptions you guys will know about once you start coding by yourself. Okay, so int main, again, let me tell you, this is the execution block. You will write int main parentheses, curly braces. Inside, you will write all the main code, and you will close the curly braces. Now return 0 is also something you must write. It's not something I want to explain to you guys right now itself. It will confuse you. So just remember, whenever you're writing code, you will write all int main, all of this, and whatever code you want to write, you write the code and write is return 0 and close the curly brace. Okay, so this is your basic C++ syntax. Now I told you I will tell you what using namespace std is. Now, Cout and cin, they're basically a part of the standard library, right? So when you want to use those functions, you want to use std next to them. You write std, colon, and then cout. Now that will become very tedious if you want to write cout statements or cin statements again and again. That time it will become very tedious. So we use this for convenience sake. So basically we are telling the compiler that std is here, and we can forget writing it over here. So that's its job. Okay. All right. So let me just check the chat. Let me see what kind of ruckus you guys have gotten into. All right. So we have a lot of things. Somebody said they love my voice. Thank you so much. I'll take care of it for you. So a lot of people are talking about Hindi. So yeah, I know you guys want a session in Hindi. We can do a session in Hindi. We probably will do a session in Hindi. Don't worry about it. Just say subscribe, and I'm pretty sure I'll try to push in into my calendar that we will do a Hindi session. Okay. Yeah, and guys, please don't spam the chat. It really ruins the harmony of the chat. And a lot of people who have genuine questions, they get buried. So if they get buried, then we can't see those questions, and it's not fair. So I see someone's here typing in Arabic. I hope that's Arabic. All right. I think people are just. All right, so someone's asking a question. I think he knows, this person knows about what C++ is. So they're asking, what is an inline function? Now, inline function is a function. How to give you guys an example for this? No, we can use that example. Here's what I'll think of a better example by the end of it. Till then, I'll explain everything else to the guys. Okay, so let's move on. This is the C++ syntax. Now I'm going to tell you guys how you can start working with C++. So we immediately going to start working with C++. So I'm going to come to my browser over here, and over here you guys can follow with me. So just type in dev C++. Now this is an integrated development environment. Now an integrated development environment is a place where you will be writing your code. Now this is not necessary, but you need a compiler to compile your code. Because whenever we write any code, right, it's very difficult for the system to understand it, because we are writing it in sort of like English, right? It's a language that we can understand. But the thing is that the machine, our laptops, our PCs, they can't understand this high level language. So we want to make it simplified for them. We want to convert it into ones and zeros. How will I convert it into ones and zeros? I will use a C++ compiler. Now, if you have an integrated development environment already, if you're using IntelliJ or if you're using Visual Studio Code, then you can set up your C++ environment over there. It's a little bit difficult. It takes a little bit of time also to set up your C++ environment. So as a beginner or as someone who's just practicing, here's what I would recommend. Now this is an amazing integrated development environment, that is dev C++. It's very easy to download, it's very small, and you can start working with it without having to set up any environment. So it's really beginner friendly, and you guys won't be turned off by this if you using this. Okay, so just go to type dev C++ in Google, and the second link you see, or the first link, that's fine. So you can just download it over here. I already have it downloaded and I already have it installed, so I don't need to do this. It's a very simple C++ IDE. As you guys can see, I have it open over here, and it's really helpful. I think you guys should use this if you're practicing any sort of C++ thing. Yeah, you have all the basic functionalities that you want for executing C++ code, and you don't have to set up anything. Normally, you would have to put a lot of time setting it up. Okay. So now we have our IDE, Integrated Development Environment, where we will write our code, where we will compile it. That means we will convert it into machine code so that the machine can run it, understand it, and then we will run it. So first, let me go ahead and write the code. Hash include IO stream, and this is me including the library that I will use to print out statement. Then I'm writing using namespace std. Then I will write in semicolon, and let me give a space using namespace std. So this way I don't have to write std again and again. This is a standard library. And then I will start writing the main block. That is my main block, right? So int main, I'm going to write int main over here. And I've given the parenthesis, opening parenthesis, ending parenthesis. Then I'll press enter. And then I will, put in the curly braces. So when I put the first curly brace, you can see that it automatically gave me the second curly brace. So integrated development environments are very specific to whatever environment you're working with. So it knows that you need another curly brace, so it gives it to you automatically. You don't have to type it. So it's really cool. So it's much better than a notepad. Okay, so we have our main block. Now we can write whatever code we want within it. So what code should we write? Now let's go with a very simple cout statement. Over here, I will write cout, I will write lesser than, and I will mention two quotation marks. And you can see it automatically made two quotation marks. So I don't have to write once more. And I will write in here, hey guys, I love teaching you. Also, I love butterscotch ice cream. Okay, so this is the statement I want to print out. Now, how will I end it? I will end it with a semicolon. This is how the C++ compiler understands that this is a program statement that needs to be printed out or something. Okay, and I will mention return 0. Okay, just put it for now. Don't worry about what it does and everything. All right, so now how will I execute this code? To execute this code, what I will do is I will basically go to the top bar over here. You will see execute over here. Click on execute and click on compile. So when I type in compile, you can see that it's processing the C++ source file. So right now it compiled my code, but it did not run it. There's no console, there's no output console, there's nothing, right? That's because it only converted my code into an executable. That means that it converted my code from high level language into machine understandable language. Now that I've converted it, I can go ahead and run it. After I run it, my output screen comes. So this is your output screen. It's kind of like a black board. And you guys can see the statement I wanted to print out. Hey guys, I love teaching you and also love butterscotch ice cream. So this is how it would work. So I hope this is really helpful for the absolute beginners. And I hope this is not too boring for people who already know about C++. Huh? All right, so this is your simple, statement for printing. And usually you would hello world, but I wanted to put something fancy in. All right, so this is your generic C++ syntax. Now let's see what comments are in C++. So basically, whenever you're writing code, right, you would want to write a comment next to it. Now, what is a comment? Comment is something basically that tells you what a statement does. So I will write over here, this statement will print out a string, right? Now, I won't get any errors over here because even though this is English and this is not part of C++, it's actually a comment. Comments are ignored by a compiler. The comments are basically like meta tags that you use to understand the code for yourself. Like if you want to share this code with your friend and your friend doesn't know what the statement does, he can read below and understand what it does. This statement will print out a string, right? So this is basically to describe your code. Comments are used to describe a code. Now, if I execute and compile and run it, you see I don't get any errors. It directly prints it out. If I remove the comment, I will get errors. So you make a comment by putting in 2 backslashes and then write whatever you want. Okay, and if you don't write the backslashes, you will get an error. Since your compiler won't understand what this is. Not run, sorry. Compile. You have to compile it and run it. Always compile and run it. See, when I compiled it, it's like this was not declared in the scope. So it thinks that this is a variable, but this is not a variable at all. It doesn't really, actually the compiler doesn't really understand what this is. Okay, so it will do its best, but it won't understand. So we will just put in the comment over here. So there are two types of comments. There is a single line comment and there is a multi-line comment. So single line comment is in a single line, and multi-line is like if you want to have a paragraph. Again, you start with backslash, you put a star, and you enter whatever you want. Hello, this is a paragraph, and I will end it by putting a star and backslash again. So you can see the coloration really tells you what is a comment and what is not a comment. You can change this coloration, but by default it is blue in dev C++. So you can understand what is a comment and what is not a comment. Okay, now let's come back. This is another piece of code over here. You guys can see how we are putting metadata in, like the name, the author, the namespace. This is namespace. This for headers, for describing this. This is main. This is print. Okay, so this is the same code we put out, except that it has been described really well. Okay. Now you would generally put statements or something that will help you understand. All right, now let's talk about variables. Now variables are very important. If you're a beginner, you probably don't know what variables are. Okay, so variables. What are variables? Now in standard maths, if you've done maths, which you all obviously have at least till 10th, you know what a variable is, right? X equals to 10. That means the variable x has the value 10. Similarly, even in C++ or programming, you have variables in which you can store value. So if I say int x equals 10 and then semicolon, what I'm doing here is basically I'm telling the C++ compiler that I want an integer value inside my variable x. And I want to put that value by myself. I will say int x equals to 10. So this way x will have the value of 10. Right? Now if I do a cout again, cout lesser than, and I put x over here and semicolon, let's see what happens when we compile and run this. So I can compile and run this over here. So it's processing. And you guys can see this is the statement imprinted, and it gave us the value 10 over here. That is the value of x. Now it gave it directly next to it because we did not mention any spacing over here. If we had mentioned any spacing, then it would have come better formatted. So this is what a variable is. A variable is basically used to store values and perform operations. So if you look at the definition, memory references whose value changes during execution. Now that's a little bit more complicated. Let me just dumb it down. Basically, these are like variables are basically like storage places. You store values within them and you use these variables to perform certain actions. Now, if let's say you wanted to take a value from the user, let's say I do not give int x equal to 10, I just say int x. So instead of giving x a value, I'm just leaving it as it is. And now I will ask a value. So here I'm using a new function called cnx. Right? So here I am taking in a value. So cin is a command that allows you to take in values. So cin x. So I've given this variable x. Now I will take a value for it. Let me go ahead and compile and run this. It's compiling. Now it's run this. Now see, it's going to ask for a value. It's waiting for a value. So if I press 10, yeah, it took that value in, but it didn't do anything with that value, right? So now our x has the value 10. All right. If you guys want to see that, let me just quickly show you. If we do cout x now, and if I compile and run this again, I will enter triple two, and you guys can see triple two was my output. All right. So I hope that's helpful for you guys to understand what a variable is. Right now, you can do a lot of different actions with a variable. You can add things to it. You can subtract things from it. So if I wanted to give x the value 10, and if I say int b will equal to x plus 10, so the value for b should be 20, right? So if we print out b over here, we should get the value 20. So we get the value 20. All right. So this is how your variables work. Now let me just check the chat for any more questions. So Narendra is asking, why are we using namespace std? So the reason we use namespace std is because It's basically telling the compiler that std is there. We just don't want to write it again and again. That's in simple terms. If you want to know like properly, using namespace std is basically used to says that if you find something in the scope that is not declared as a standard library. So if your cout does not have std over here, std colon colon, this is how you generally would write it. This is how you generally would write it, but since you're not writing it, it will give us an error. So if I remove this and if I remove using namespace std, let's see what happens when I compile this. I should get an error, right? So it says there's no std cout. All right, so that's why we do it. Okay, let's come back. Again, you guys can see there's something called initialization and assignment. Now, I've already showed you these two things. Initialization is basically you bringing a variable into existence. So if I say int x, remember no capitalization over here. It's a case sensitive language. It will not identify int then. Int x is basically me initializing x. Now I've not given it any value, but I have initialized this variable. That means now it is existing in my program. There has been memory allocated for this, right? And declaring or assignment is basically me giving a value to this. So if I do x equals 100, this is me assigning a value to my variable. Yeah, and that is your declaring. This is initialization, this is declaring a value. You can do both of these things together that we did. That is int b equals to 10. That is you are declaring a value. So you initialize b and you declare its value as 10. All right, so I hope that was clear. Again, you guys can see these are the data types, the type of the variable. You can have int a, you can have float b. Now, int is normal integer. It has a certain range. Let me just quickly tell you guys what the range is. Yeah, so we use int and float. So float is basically used for your decimals and int is used for integers. Now, there is a reason we use other data types also. I will get into why we use them later. Let me just show you the program over here using namespace std, hash include iostream, int main, a equals to 10, b equals 20, and cout a plus b, that is 10 plus 20. So we should get 30 out of here, but using float, right? So float is a decimal point value. All right, user input and output. I've already explained to you guys cin and cout. So these are basically standard input stream and standard output stream. Standard input stream is used for collecting values. Standard output stream is basically for pushing out values into the outputs console. A stream is an entity where a program can either insert or extract characters to and from. There is no need to know details about the media associated to the stream or any of its internal specifications. Just know that cin and cout are some things that we use to input and output things. Here's a demo. Let me go ahead and show you guys a demo over here by myself. Then we will look at this. It'll be much better. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to initialize a variable. Let's say it's x. Actually, this time I'm going to use something called char instead of int. So this way it's going to take in character value instead of numbers. And I will print out a statement, cout, putting quotations. Hey, give me a value. Yeah. Then I will take in a value. So over here, I will take in cin. Right, so we should give it a character value. So cin, we're going to put x. So x will accept that value and then we can print it out. Now let me give this proper spacing. And remember always to end with a semicolon. As you guys can see, I'm ending with semicolons all over here. And there is something really cool you guys can do. Once you print out a statement, right, you can, instead of putting the semicolon, you can put again lesser than symbol. and you can put the variable in. So this way you're printing out your string as well as the variable together. All you have to do is basically, yeah. All you have to do is basically put in the string value in double quotes, and when you want to put in the variable, put the lesser than again, and put your variable. Okay, so let's go ahead and compile and execute this. All right, so it's asking us for a value, and you can see it's asking us below. So let's say the value is D. I press D. So it tells us here is your value, that is D. Okay, so this is how your input output works. Again, in the example given over here, we are declaring two variables. You can do this int a comma b semicolon. So you're declaring initializing two variables a and b, and you're doing it in one statement. You just have to put a comma over here and semicolon in the end. You enter a number for a, you take in a value for a, you enter a number, you print out a statement, enter a number, and you take in value for b, and you print out the sum of the two numbers. So we can go ahead and do that too. Let me go ahead and change this to int x comma y. So we're taking x value. I will say here, give me another value. We will remove the variable. We're not printing out the variable right now. And I will take in value for y over here. And now I will print out x plus y. First I will say, here is your combined value. Yeah, and I'll put this, and let me give it, I'll tell you guys what this is. This basically gives, it's an enter. Like when you want to format it, right? And you want, let's say you want to put a value below the statement, then you put this. This way the compiler understands that you want to print this and you want to do a new line. So it goes to a new line and it prints whatever you want. All right, so then we will put the lesser than again, and we will put x plus y. Remember, they all have to be the same case, otherwise it will find it, it will find an error here. So we are printing basically the sum of x and y. So let me go ahead and execute this, compile and run. So first we will get value for x. Let's say I'm giving 100. Now I'm going to give it another value. I'm going to give the value for y. Let's say I'm going to give it 333, and I'm going to press enter. So you guys can see it basically added 100 and 333 and gave me 433. I hope everyone understood this, right? Okay, now we will move on. Let me just check the chat. Again, you guys can see the output example here, 10, 20, 10 plus 20 is 30. All right, so we have a lot more people coming in. So Karthik is asking, is this video going to cover oops? So we are not going to be covering oops. So I hope that is fine, because this is a beginner session. We can do a more advanced session on C++ later. Okay, so here are the different data types. You don't have to go into all of the details like Boolean, character, integer, and all of that, or array, function, or pointer, or structure, union, or enum. But you have all the different data types. Now let me just explain the most important ones. Character is one of the most important ones, integer and floating point. So this is for decimal, this is for negative and positive values, and this is for characters. And Boolean is basically true or false, right? This is how your maths is. Even in maths, you have true and false, right? In Boolean. So similarly, you have true and false. You don't need to worry about the rest of them. You can learn about them way later. And basically you have derived from built-in types also, like array, function, pointer. You don't need to know this. I'll just skip all of that. All right, so we have modifiers to these, like signed, unsigned, long, short. I don't think this is necessary for you guys. So they basically modifiers that give certain modification to your data types. If you say long int, then it gives the variable certain extra special characteristics. All right, so we're not going to go through that because I don't think it's necessary for you guys right now. Now we're going to go through the arithmetic operators. Okay, so arithmetic operators basically is like maths, right? Plus, minus, divide, multiply, all these things. And in arithmetic operators in C++, you have two types. You have unary operators and you have binary operators. So plus plus, minus minus, plus minus, multiplication, division, right? So these are the binary operators and these are the unary operators. The difference is in binary operators, you have two operands. That means when you do x plus y, you have two variables, right? So plus is working with two people. Since plus is working with two people, he's a binary guy, he's a binary operator. But if x is working with plus plus, then plus plus over here is a unary operator because there is only one variable. These are your plus plus and minus minuses. I can do y minus minus also over here. Now, what do these unary operators do? I'm pretty sure you guys already know what these, binary operators do. They basically, help you find, calculate stuff for you. If I do x into y, I will get some value. If both of them are 10, 10, I'll get 100 over here. If I divide them, I will get 1 as the value. But what value will I get if I put x plus plus, right? So over here, the value I should get, or actually let me remove that plus plus over here because we're already doing that over here, x plus plus and semicolon. So this is an operation we are doing on x. So basically, we are taking x's value. Let's say the value of x is 10 and we are adding 1 to it. So plus plus basically means addition of one value. So 10 will become 11 and it will store that value in x. You don't have to write x equal to after that. And the y minus minus is basically negating one value from y. So let me give you guys a better example. I will execute this, compile and run it. Let's compile and run it. Right, so now I will give x the value 10 and I'll give y the value 10. Now what is the output we get? We get 11 and 9. Since I didn't give any space, there is no space over here. So 11 and 9 is what we get. So 10, it basically adds 1 to 10 and it stores that value in x. And here it subtracts 1 from y and it stores that value in y itself. So here we have 11 and 9. So if we gave an addition of this, we should get 20. So if I do 10, 10, we got 20. All right, because it's 11 plus 9. All right, coming back. So these were your unary operators and these are your binary operators. All right. And then we have relational operators. So we will use these when we are talking about the if and conditionals. Okay. So this is basically for use for conditional situations where you want to test out if, let's say, we will say if x equal to y. So this is a statement that is asking the compiler to check if x and y's value are same. If we enter x's value as 10 and we enter y's value as 10, then over here it will check if x is equal to y. That means it will check x and y's value. If it finds that both of these values are same, it will go ahead and execute whatever statement is there below it. There has to be a indentation over here, right? So it can't be like this, it has to be like this. So this will basically only print this statement out if x is equal to y, right? If x is 11 and y is 10, then this will not work. It will not print this statement out. So if I do execute, compile and run, if I give the x value as 10, if I give y value 11, I will not get any output. I got this processing power output and all, but that does not really matter. We wanted this input string as output. We're not getting that, right? So let me close this again and we will enter another value. In this case, we will try to enter values that are same. X will have the same value and y will have the same value. Yeah. So let me go ahead and give it a value 10 and I'll give this 10 again. So you guys can see here is your combined value. So it only worked if x and y was same. Now I can go ahead and change this to if x is equal to or less than y. So if this was 9 and 10, it will still work because x is less than y. But if this was 11, this condition will not work. So if is a conditional statement that allows you to print out statements only if a certain condition is true. So this is really useful when you're writing programs. because it allows you to write more complex things. Like if a certain condition is true, only then print out it. So if the username, if the password is same to what the user has given, user dot password, this is an example. Yeah, so if the user given password is same to what password has been stored, then only it will say access granted. Yeah, I hope this gave you a better understanding of real-time use. Not exactly the same thing, but this is what it is like. Then logical operators is basically when you want to combine two conditions together. Let's say that you wanted to check if x is equal to y, and you wanted to check if x is greater than 10. So this way, this statement only gets printed when x is equal to y. That means x is 10, y is 10, so it should get executed. But no, we have an AND condition where x has to be greater than 10. Since it's not greater than 10, this will not get executed. So those are your logical operators. So AND is this, or means that either one of them can be true. So if this is true, it will execute, or if this is true, it will execute. AND means both have to be true. And not means that not it's not true at all, right? So let me just show you guys. Yeah, so this is how you write not. If x not equal to y, so if x was 11 and y was 10, they both won't be equal. That means it is getting executed because that's the condition we set. If none are equal, then execute both of them. So assignment operator, let me go ahead and explain what an assignment operator is over here. So assignment operator is basically something that allows you to give a value for something and remove the add the value to the particular variable itself. So let's say if you wanted to add 10 to x. So instead of writing x equal to something something, you write x equal to x plus 10, right? So this way you are assigning x a value. What value are you assigning x? The value of x plus 10. So if value of x was 10, then it will be x is 20 value after this statement, because x's value is 10, right? Over here it's 10. Now we want to assign x a new value. So there'll be a new x value, and that will be the old value plus 10. So if I do x over here, and let's remove this so you guys will get a better understanding. Let's compile and run it. We're giving x a new value, right? So we'll give x a value. Let's say it's 20. So old value for x is 20 because we're giving it that, and new value is 30. Why? Because it added 20 plus 10 and gave 30 and stored the new value in x again. So it overrode the old value. X used to have 10, but we added 10 and 10 together and it gave x a new value. It overrode the old value, so it gave it 20. In our case, it gave it 30. I hope that made it clear for you guys. All right, so this is another example. If you're watching this as a video, you can go ahead and pause this and check this out. Try to resolve whatever value. If you get a certain value, go ahead and put in the chat or put in the comment section. Enter a value for yourself. Or let's say you're taking value for A as 10 and B as 10. Okay, if A is equal to 10 and B is equal to 10, go ahead and solve this. What will happen? Plus plus A, right? So it will add 1 to A. But plus plus A, if it precedes A, that means that the value won't be added within the statement itself. It will be added after the statement gets over. Now it's a little bit complicated again, but that's all right, guys. Don't worry. The only thing I'm telling you is that if plus plus precedes a variable, that means if it's before a variable, if it's plus plus A, then it won't get added within the statement itself. If you're printing out plus plus A, then it will print only A. But if you're printing A plus plus, then it will print out the value of it also. I hope you guys got it. So strings are basically, the values we're talking about in quotations. You can take great and learning and put it as great learning. Yeah. So these are more of the little complicated ones like strcpy and strcmp. We'll skip right through these. They're not that important. Also, guys, if you want this PowerPoint slide, you can go ahead and download it. The moderator in the chat will give you the PowerPoint so that you can work all of these problems out by yourself. Okay. All right, so I want to tell you guys about the math.h library. This is another library that we are learning about. Okay, so let me quickly go ahead and add another library over here. So I will do hash include math.h. Okay, now that I've added math.h, I can use all of these functions. That is sine, cos, tan, sqrt, absolute, right? So let's try using sqrt. What is sqrt? It is basically square root. So int x, let's say x has the value. What value can we give? Square root. Let's give it 16. Okay, so x has the value 16. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna create another variable, and we are going to initialize it with the value sqrt of x. So we're taking 16, finding square root of it, that is 4, and we'll store it in b. Now let's print out b. So we should get b as 4. So let me go ahead and compile and run this. So we got 4 as the value, right? Now if we give 4 as the value for x, then we should get 2. If I compile and run this, we're getting 2 as the value. All right. Okay, so let's take a 2-minute break. Let me go through all the questions you guys have. So I'm skipping stuff over here because for beginners, I know they will not understand it at all. Like if I explain to you guys strcpy, you will not totally understand it. So basically, all of these commands are used to work on strings. So strings are basically long sentences or characters. So let's say you are storing a string h and you are giving this value. Let's say you're giving it here great, and you want to, so h has the value great now, right? And you want to copy the h into something else, then you would use the strcp command, strcpy, but you have to use the library also with it, sce string. So it's a lot of things that you guys will get confused with if I tell it to you right now. So in future, I'll try to avoid including all of these things so that you guys don't get confused, okay? Maybe in a future lesson, we can cover this. All right, so there are a lot of different types of math functions that you can use. You can find sine value, cos value, tan value, absolute value, that is returning whatever is the absolute value of it, and the power, if you want to return a particular power, that is the 2 raised to 4, whatever value you want for that, you can return that also. So this is how you would use it. You will basically write pow x comma 2, right? So that's written 4 raised to 2. Okay, cool. So you guys can pause this and try to resolve this. Use check out the values, whatever values they have, and try to find the or you can copy the code and try to run it for yourself. Enter more values. Okay. Now, Boolean data type is used to declare a variable whose value will be set as either true or false, right? So in Boolean, if you say bool x, then this will give us an error because x can only have either value as 1 or 0 then. Okay, so this is used in specific use cases. All right, so over here, you guys can see in the example, bool machine is working is equal to true. So here we are printing, since this machine is working, its value is true, right? Or 1. So let's try this out actually. Let me say bool x and see out. X value is, let me go ahead and put x over here. And let me put true over here. as the value for it. Okay, and we will see what happens when we print out x's value. All right, let's remove this extra library. We don't need that. Yeah, so we forgot to add the lesser than. You guys can see how that is important. That's why it's important to compile and run. So during compilation, it will find all the errors that you may have or may not have. All right, so x's value is 1. So true. If I put false over here, and if I compile and run that, we will get 0 as the value. Yeah, 0 as the value. All right, so let's move on. Over here, you're going to get 1 as the value, and over here, you guys are going to get the 0 as value. Conditional statements. So I've already told you guys about conditional statements. Now let's get into a little bit more detail about it. Conditional statements are basically like your if statements, right? If a certain condition is true, execute another statement. So conditional statements are also known as selectional statements because they allow you to. All right, fine. I'll make up my own example. If x is greater than 10, or if x, let's say, modulo 2 equal to 0. So what I'm doing over here is, let me go ahead and not just initialize x as integer. So modulo over here basically returns a remainder. So whenever you do 10 divided by 2, you get a value 5, right? But what is the remainder over here? The remainder is 0. So I am checking that if the remainder is equal to 0, then say that x is an even number. So x is an even number. Why? Because every even number will be divisible by 2. And if it is divisible by 2, that means that remainder is 0. Okay, so let's try this out. Let me also take in a value for x so that we can test it for multiple things. I will go ahead and compile and run this. Right, so it's asking us for a value. Sorry, yeah. So let's enter 10. We can see that 10 is an even number. If we gave it 11 as the value, so 11 divided by 2 will give us some value, but it will not have a remainder as 0, right? It will have some other remainder. It will have 1 as the remainder. And 1 is not what we want over here. It's not the condition. So if I press enter, we will not get any comment. All right, so let's move on. So there is something called if else statement. So basically it gives you the possibility to have another condition. So over here, if x is not divisible by 2, so that means x is not an even number. But we can put an else condition over here. So if this condition is not true, then we are going to execute this condition. Else, sorry, not this condition, we're gonna execute this statement. If the first argument is not true, then print out the second statement instead of the first statement. That means that if x was an even number, we will print out x is an even number. But if it's not an even number, then x has to be an odd number. X is an odd number. Because if it's not an even number, then it's an odd number. That's how math is, right? Other than one exception, that 1 is neither. Okay, so we're gonna enter some random value. Let me just, yeah, so let's say it is 7. So it tells us x is an odd number. Why? Because it divided this value by 2. It did not get a 0 because this is an odd number. And since it did not get a 0, it did not execute the first statement. If it did not execute the first statement, it will go to the next condition else and it will print out the second statement. Okay. All right, so that's an if else statement. Now there is a nested if else statement. So within this, we can do more things. So if x is an even number, we can print out this statement and we can put in another if condition. We can say if x is greater than 10, or Yeah, that's fine. If x is greater than 10, then we will print out the statement cout cout x is greater, x is a even number that is greater than 10. All right. So we have the first condition. Within that condition, it will print out, if this condition is true, it will print out a statement. And once it checks, once this is done, it will go to the next statement. Over here, it will check for if. Now, when you give two specific conditions, right, you need to include curly braces over here. So let me just include the curly braces, and let's copy all of this. When you have more than one statement, you have to include curly braces. So we have two statements, this one and this one. So in this statement, we are checking the condition if x is greater than 10. So if x is greater than 10, then it will print out x is an even number greater than 10. So let's go ahead and execute this, compile and run this. So we're gonna enter 14, and it tells us x is an even number and x is an even number that is greater than 10. Okay, so that means that this is working. Now let's try this out, but I'm gonna put one if statement even under else also. So let's okay, so I'm going to put an if statement here. X is less than 10. Just copy this. Okay, so x is an odd number which is lesser than 10. Okay, so we have that. Let me just put formatting, compile and run this. So wait for this to get executed. So let me say 9, press enter. It says x is an odd number and x is an odd number that is lesser than 10. So it's a nested if condition. So if your first if condition is not true, it will check for else. So if this condition is not true, it will check else, and else it will print out the statement, and within that we have something else also, like we have another nested if statement. So it will check this condition again. Okay, if this wasn't true, it will not print out this. Let's go back. All right, so this is a nested if else statement, and there's a if else statement is nested. Okay, fine, yeah. All right, so that's what I told you guys just now. This is an example, a code segment to determine the largest number of 3. So if A is greater than B, so we will check if A is greater than B, then we will check if A is greater than C. So if A is greater than B and C, that means A has to be the largest. So let's say A has 10 value, B has 9 value, and C has 8 value. A is greater than B, 10 is greater than 9, 10 is greater than 8. So A is the largest. Else, it will check if B is greater than C. What we are assuming over here is that if A is not greater than B, that means B has to be greater than A. So let's say A's value was 9 and B's value was 10 and C's value was 11. So this will not be true because 9 is lesser than B. So it will go to else, and in else it will check if B is greater than C, which is it will check if 10 is greater than 11, which is again not true. So it will go to the nested else and it will say that C is the largest. That means 11 is the largest. So this is how your code segment will work to print the largest of the 3 numbers. All right, so switch case. Okay, so switch case is basically your if else. The difference over here is that instead of using if else, you're using the switch case. So you're assigning E a value over here. So you're writing E equal to 10, and in switch you're gonna write in parentheses the variable E, and in curly braces you're gonna write case 1. So case 1 will be executed if E is equal to 10, right? So you're putting the value over here, and case 2 will be executed if E is equal to 20. Right, and if it doesn't match any of these cases where E is not equal to any of these values, actually it should be case 10 and case 20. Okay, fine, yeah. So it will not execute it if E does not match any of the cases. All right, so let's talk about looping. Looping is the last thing, and this is something I wanted to tell you guys. This is important. Let's remove all these if statements. All right. So looping is basically iterative thing. Like you want to do something again and again. So let's say you wanted to add 4 to x, right? So you would do x equal to x plus 4. But what if you wanted to add 4 to x like 10 times? You can't just keep and copy and paste it, right? I mean, you can do that, but it's not really effective. So what you will do is you will type in for, you will type in over here int I will explain to you what this is. You will put 0, you will say I less than 10, then you will say I plus plus, you would put the curly braces, and over here you're gonna just copy this and paste it. And let's do a cout statement and put x over here. All right, so basically what we're doing over here is for is a looping statement, so it loops this particular statement again and again. How many times do we loop it? We define over here. So this is our definition for how many times we want to loop a certain thing. We can loop this 10 times, we can loop this 100 times. Okay, so for that we will initialize another variable I, we will give it the value 0. So this is how it works. First we give I 0 in the starting, and once we give value I 0, the 0 will be checked with this condition. This is a certain condition. I less than 10. Is 0 less than 10? Yes, it is. So once the condition is true, the loop will execute. This particular block of code will be executed. That means x equal to x plus 4 will be executed for the first time. Then it will repeat. It will come back and it will do an addition, I plus plus. It will add one value greater than its previous value. So 0 plus 1. So the new value of I is 1. Now the new value of I is 1, right? So it will check again if I is less than 10. Yes, 1 is still less than 10. So if 1 is less than 10, then this loop will be executed again. So x will be added with 4 again, right? And then again I will get added with one more value. So 1 plus 1 will be 2. Now 2 is the new value for I. 2 will be checked again with 10, and this state it is less than 10, so it will be executed again and again. This will keep on happening until I becomes 9, and this statement gets executed and comes back and it adds a new value to 9, and that is 10. So once it becomes 10, right, it will check if I is less than 10. 10 is not less than 10, so this statement is, this condition is not true. If this condition is not true, it will break the loop and will come out and will print the next statement. Okay, so the expected value for us here should be, if I say x is equal to 0, so first it will add 4 and will keep on adding 4 for us. Okay, so let me go ahead and compile and run this. So it should add 4 11 times for us because we added one extra. Yeah, so let me just remove that, and the value we should get is 40. So we got 40 because we wanted to execute this statement 10 times. 10 times if you add 4 to something, it becomes 40, right? We can change it to 100 also. So this loop will execute 100 times. If I do compile and run, we get 400 as the value. So this is what your looping statements work like. Okay. We have multiple different types of looping statements. One is your for loop, which is one of the most popular loops out there. Then you have a while loop. So it's very similar to this. The difference is that instead of you have following a different syntax, and it's a little bit of a different logic. So while x is less than 10, you will write the curly braces. So while x is less than n, you will print this out, and here you will put I plus plus. Okay. So basically you're doing the same thing, except that you're initializing I in the start. Okay, so I is again 0. It will check if I is less than 0. I is less than 0, so it will execute this statement, and then it will add 1 to I, and once it adds 1 to y, it will repeat the loop until this condition breaks. Let's go ahead and compile this. We should get the same answer. We got 40 again, right? So this is your while loop. and there is something called a do while loop. So basically, again, it's a little bit of a different syntax where you're doing do. So basically, you're doing something in current parenthesis. Let me take this do and while your condition. So over here, while and uh, a condition was I less than 10. So while I is less than 10, it will execute this. Okay, and we can add I plus plus. All right. So these were the loopings, and let's wrap it up. Oh, that was a long session. I hope you guys got something. Let me just answer some of the questions you guys have been asking me so much. So Rahul is asking for an Android development course. Yes, you can go ahead and check out Great Learning Academy. We are actually planning to come up with Android development course. You guys can go and check it out. Someone's asking what is a return zero. So return zero here is basically like you're returning a specific value. So you're returning zero at the end of it, right? So here the main function is returning zero as a value. So it doesn't really mean anything, but we include it. Okay, and can we use VS Code IDE or Jupyter Notebook for C++? You cannot use Jupyter Notebook for C++. Jupyter Notebook is used for Python, if I remember correctly. And you can use VS Code, that is Visual Studio Code. Now, I've recommended you guys to use Dev C++ because in Dev C++ you don't have to set up the environment. That's the best part. It's a lot of headache to set up your C++ environment in any other IDE. Trust me, I've tried it. You can do it, obviously. It's not like an impossibility. You definitely can do it, but I prefer this for simple purposes. If you want to do hardcore development, yeah, definitely you need to set up a visuals like another IDE, a much better IDE than Dev C++. So Manav is asking for printf. You can use a printf statement in C++ also. It's something that is being carried over from C. So this is how you would do a printf statement. Yeah, so this is your printf statement. It's like cout. It prints out strings. So you can see printf, parentheses, hello world, and semicolon. Right, so this is how your printf statement works, but it's generally used in C. Can you use void main? Yes, you can use void main. Actually, yeah, you can use void main also. You don't need to use int main, if I remember correctly. So Justin is like, yeah, cout means printf in C++. All right, so Sachin is asking for inline function definition. Okay, yeah, I remember telling you guys that I will tell you what is an inline function. So let me quickly tell you what an inline function is. Basically, an inline function is like it's a function that you write in C++ to like make the what do you say, execution time of your program much better. So inline functions help you make a better faster program, in short. Like if you wanted to give you guys an example, so you would just need to write specific inline void and whatever function. So let's say fun is the function and your code. Yeah, so this is going to be an inline function. Cool. Now it's generally used in the oops thing. That's why I didn't mention it. I didn't want to go into detail because it's going to confuse all the beginners out there. All right, guys, so that's it for this live session. I took it for more than our 1 hour general thing. It went to 1 hour 15 minutes now. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Ram. And please do like and subscribe if you like this session. And also, if you feel like checking out any of our free courses, feel free to do so on Great Learning Academy. Do it on your phone or just go to the website. You can get a lot of free courses over here. Now, there are amazing trainers who have made amazing courses. You can go ahead and check them out on a lot of different domains. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really enjoyed teaching you. And